Reviewing Snowpiercer Season 4, Episode 2, The Sting of Survival. So in this episode, we get to see what happened on train 9 months ago that led to Audrey leaving in the rail scaler to try and warn New Eden. Personally, I didn't love this episode. I thought it was pretty anticlimactic, and it didn't answer any important questions while at the same time trying to pretend it had a big surprise reveal. And overall, I think I would have appreciated this episode a lot more if it had been the pilot, and then we'd gone into New Eden in appropriate chronological order, because then there would have actually been tension in what was going to happen in all of those attack scenes and the face-off between Melanie and the international peacekeepers. But as things stand, the majority of this episode isn't that interesting. We know that Melanie either loses the train or surrenders the train to the international peacekeepers, but then whatever's going on in New Eden doesn't seem to connect or relate to their stated goal, which means they have multiple projects or they're lying. And either way, it means the little bit of information we get in this episode is no longer relevant to what's going on now. Seeing what happened in the train 9 months ago doesn't actually answer any questions about who's in charge of the train now, who's alive. We had a lot of time to do this Melanie Peacekeeper face-off and not a lot of time to actually answer any of the questions that would still be relevant right now. That said, let's go ahead and dive into those characters. I spent most of this episode waiting to see how Audrey got scarred and finding out that it's just half of her face being exposed in the rail scaler while she's traveling to New Eden is a real bummer. I didn't want Audrey to be tortured or anything, but at the same time, it's girl,
just cover your whole face with the blanket and you'll be fine.
If there's some kind of physical forced march labor going on in Snowpiercer and this scarring was a result of her defying their will, that would have been more interesting to watch. And it would have helped show us what kind of threat we're dealing with the international peacekeepers, because right now, I don't know what level of threat they're at. Are they a Wilford level threat? Are they Leighton trying to do the right thing, but shrouding everything in secrets and lies so that he can really get his will pushed forward? Is this a fractured kind of leadership thing where some people think they're going one way, but really there's this larger overarching thing people are in the dark about? This hasn't really helped me set some kind of benchmark. Moving into Till, she's very much the same character we left back in season 3. I love her fight, her resistance, how true she is to those around her and to the cause in general. The fact that we watch her get shot point blank in the shoulder and then she's up and moving trying to rally the troops to fight. Classic Till, it's part of why we love her and root for her. And Ben's in this episode and I'm just disappointed he didn't get shot in the head when we had the opportunity. Dr. Pelton's here, being a great supporting character. She's very consistent and competent. Tristan is here leading hospitality, and we might actually get a chance to see him do something or pick a side. He's been existing here in the background for a very long time and the butt of a lot of jokes with his general incompetence or whatever. This is his chance to rise to the occasion and actually become something. So it will be really interesting to see what role hospitality takes now that our more star-driven characters like Melanie and then Ruth and even Zara to a lesser degree are out of that role, and Tristan has to take all that responsibility on himself. Miles is here, being the same guy he was even when he was a child. He's still loyal to the tale, looking out for the people, spreading messages, listening in, and he's still kind of underestimated by the people in power. They just let him work around and hear things and stuff, and I guess that's what happens when you're quiet and unassuming. And Melanie's here in this season continuing the role of erratic lady. I was really disappointed by how she was portrayed in season 3. Her going up against Leighton didn't make any sense to me. It felt like she had committed to being this survivalist and getting humanity back on Earth instead of stuck on the train, and she just swapped over to Wilfred's side and insisted the science wasn't any good, even though she was the one who collected the science. All the science was pointing this way. Even her boyfriend Ben was pointing out that living on the train has an expiration date on it. A pet theory of mine has always been and continues to be she lost some of her brain functionality in the rail scaler when she was going in and out of suspended animation. We had seen that had really detrimental effects on people, and the longer you were under it, the worse it was. And we never actually got to see anyone fully recover from that, or if that was even viable. So her going from really smart, cunning, and driven to into like this wishy-washy person doing erratic things to me is like brain damage. Her choosing to hand over the train people she does not know and should not trust makes no sense for Melanie's character. I know she's familiar with Nima, but it's been 7, maybe 8 years since she's seen him. She knows how much she and other people have changed and been hardened by the freeze. Why would she trust Nima now? Getting off the train is the worst thing she can do because she's abandoning them to whatever their whims are when she's gone. The fact that she gets visual confirmation New Eden exists and her daughter's alive and she doesn't like run back to Alex is very odd to me. She really wanted people to go back to living normally and she wanted her daughter to thrive. Your mission is over. You should drive the train there, get off, and then let the peacekeepers take over Snowpiercer. Who even cares? They can take some supplies, a few cars, leave everything else for you guys in New Eden. You can do the resettlement part and they can do this mission on their own. And then moving into the international peacekeepers, we really don't get any more on the Admiral and we don't get to personally meet any of the other international peacekeepers like Mask Off. Nima comes in as a scientist. He's like with the group vaguely, but not in the military wing. He seems like your nervous, depressed genius, but I don't know, we got like a minute with him. And that moves us into specific scenes. Being back in the night car with it all pretty and like the ballerina Audrey with Till like cuddling in one of the private rooms was a really sweet scene. And it's nice to see that their relationship's strong. They both seem to be healthy. All of those good, positive signs. Also, the scene where Till and Audrey are in the market. They're sure they're gonna die from exposure and Till asks if Audrey ever considered stepping over the line and joining her on Big Alice was really heart-wrenching, sad stuff. Till had been forced to choose between freedom and love and she ended up choosing Audrey and never really knowing if Audrey even had feelings half as intense as her own. From all that we saw, Audrey never even considered choosing love over her quote-unquote like duty to the train. She never considered if she should put Till's needs and values above the values of the quote-unquote train. It was always about like her validation in this important position within the train. That was always like very sad and felt uneven in their relationship. So it was nice, even if this is like a half-hearted gesture where she agrees she at least thought about it, even that little bit right before the end is nice for Till to have. Then moving into themes. Climate change is real and general environmentalism stuff. So way back in season 2, I talked about how the environment can self-correct and it looks like we've gotten an update on the lore. Humans are correcting their own errors, which is another like sort of theme where you look for the quick fix. It has unexpected consequences. We can see this when we like introduce different plants and animals to non-native populations to like control an element of the environment we don't like, and then they get out of control and there's nothing we can do about it. Usually we find a way years and years and years later down the line to kind of push back and help the environment self sort of correct. Arguably, we're seeing that now with Dr. Nima and what he's working on here in the bunker. We had no mention in this episode of seismic activity though, so I don't know if this is connected to the freeze or undoing the freeze. I don't know if this is a separate environmental issue. Moving into loneliness, isolation, loss of normalcy, we're literally seeing all of the cast members getting further split up. Melanie stays in the bunker while Ben continues to run Snowpiercer. Audrey and Till get split across New Eden when that was a thing they never wanted to happen. And the continued changing environment of the train is very real, where it was like semi-peaceful passenger sort of situation. We've moved back into like this gulag work camp sort of scenario for them again. Moving into Are the Kids Okay? It looks like Miles has fully transitioned into adulthood. And it's nice to see him like as a competent, capable, if slightly quiet adult. His serious demeanor with like the gap in when we actually got to see him in the show probably helped with this transition a lot. But looking at him as an adult, it seems like everything turned out okay. He seems to be a capable adult. He's smart, he's intelligent, he has effective communication skills, he's great at his job, and he works like at in high demand position. There's no LJ seen or mentioned in this episode, so I'm thinking she was well and truly killed off in season 3. And if that's true, there might be some messaging about children making miraculous recoveries from traumatic events like Miles did, versus children being isolated, spoiled, and overly sheltered, leading to bad ends, which is not a message I love. But within the context of the show, it makes a little bit more sense because it's not like Miles had choices about what was going on. He could either have died in the freeze, gone on board Snowpiercer, and endured. When he has choices, they are like, do you stick with your found family or do you pick the easy route and look after only yourself? And Miles continually goes back to his family, his community, and his roots. Where LJ might not have had a choice about the luxury she was born into, she doesn't use that for good ends, to better her community, to support each other. And every time she has the opportunity to become part of the community or to reach out and help, she spurns it. The only time she's ever done anything good in Snowpiercer's entire run is when she snuck into the engineering room to witness that Wilford wasn't real. And even then, she did that specifically because she knew it would cause trouble and chaos. And even then, she went in there and initially was going to mess with Javi instead of witnessing whether or not Wilford was there because she just couldn't control herself. And she thought that would be the more exciting prank. So looking at it in a more contextual lens, I think maybe the messaging is that children are resilient, and as long as you do the best you can by them, when they have the opportunity to make their own choices, that is what will really define the quality of life they have going forward. Moving into the theme of resistance is never useless. As things stand right now, the resistance Melanie and Ben put up against the Admiral to keep Snowpiercer off of an unknown track did not work. And the resistance that Ben, Till, Audrey, and Miles put up to warn New Eden about an incoming attack also did not work. That's not to say that this continued resistance and pushing of boundaries and pushing back on an unfair dictator won't pay off in the end. And that's not uncommon on Snowpiercer. Failure is a huge part of this show. And seeing that even though what you wanted to achieve isn't the outcome, you still got something for the effort. And as far as Wilfred's train being a fortress to class, I think we see a return to that status quo because Melanie and Ben are the ones who discuss the Admiral's mission and proposal, and they discuss what change this will mean for the passengers without consulting anyone, even Till or Audrey or Pelton or any of the usual council. And we also get a little bit of a glimpse of what looks like a return to military law and a class-based system with the military at the top and all the passengers working underneath. And that's everything I've got for Snowpiercer episode 2. This one was kind of disappointing. Snowpiercer has more successfully told stories at a time before. In season 2, when we lose contact with Melanie on train, it's 2 episodes before we get Melanie's version of events. And then we see the train not picking her up. And it's another episode, I believe, before we find out why the train didn't pick her up. If it was a mechanical issue, or they're in the middle of a fight, or Wilford had taken over and abandoned her, there were still options and mysteries and tension involved. But in this case, there wasn't anything tense remaining for us. I suppose what would have been tense is finding out what happened to the passengers, but in this small retrospective, we don't know. I'm still really excited for the season as a whole though. Can't wait for episode 3. It feels like Layton's revenge arc is going to be a lot of fun, but he doesn't have any leads to go on right now, and I'm curious what they're going to come up with to help the characters be driven in this revenge arc. But talk to me in those comments down below. Are you watching Snowpiercer season 4? And if so, what do you think so far? And as always, keep reading.